Jaya Grivaradhari Gopidana Balaba Grivaradhari Jaya Grivaradhari Sodanandana Radhadana Ranjana Jaya Radhadana Ranjana Sodanandana Radhadana Ranjana Jaya Radhadana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Gopidana Balaba Grivaradhari Jaya Grivaradhari Gopidana Balaba Grivaradhari Jaya Grivaradhari Sodanandana Radhadana Ranjana Jaya Radhadana Ranjana Prahladananda Raja Janaranjana Jaya Brata Janaranjana Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamunatiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Brahmahangsa Brahmadakshari Asadhara Satushi Srimad His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Glories to the sound devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskyatyade Satarne Om Agyanatvarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurum Dolitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shigaro Shiyuta Padakamalam Shigaram Vaishnavam Scha Shirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashubhana Sudhadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata, text number 17. Vayam pramatasya vanesh vapi syad yataksa sa aste saha shad sat sapatnana chitandriyasyatma ratirabhutasya Kriyashramam kim nu karot yavad yam Vayam pramatasya vanesh vapayasyad Yataksa aste sahashad sapatna Hitandriyasyatma rater buddhasya Grahashrama kim nu karot yavadyam Ladies, Bhayam, fear, pramatasya, of one who is bewildered, vaneshu, in forests, api, even, syat, there must be, yataha, because, saha, he, one who is not self-controlled. Aste is existing. Saha, with. Shat sapatna, 6 co-wives. Jita indriyasya, for one who has already conquered the senses. Atmarate, self-satisfied. Buddhasya, for such a learned man. Griha ashrama, household life. Kim, what? Nu, indeed. Karoti, can do. Avadyam, harm. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Even if one goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-wives, the mind and knowledge acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied, learned man who has conquered his senses. Please repeat. Even if he goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-wives. The mind and knowledge acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied, learned man who has conquered his senses. Purport. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Grihe va vanite take, ha goranga bale dake. Whether one is situated in the forest or at home, if he is engaged in the devotional service of Lord Chaitanya, he is a liberated person. Here, this is also repeated. One who has not controlled his senses, going to the forest to become so-called yogi is meaningless, because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him. He cannot achieve anything, even by giving up household life and staying in the forest. Formerly, many mercantile men from the up community of India used to go to Bengal, and thus there was a familiar saying, if you go to Bengal, your fortune will go with you. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses, and since the senses cannot be controlled unless engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, our most important duty is to engage the senses in devotional service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. Bhakti means engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord. Here, Lord Brahma indicates that instead of going to the forest with uncontrolled senses, it is better and more secure to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. Even household life cannot do harm to a self-controlled person acting in this way. It cannot force him into material bondage. Srila Rupa Goswami has further enunciated this position. Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikilas vapya vastasu jivan muktas uchate. The ladies should stop talking. Ladies, you should just be quiet with your service. Regardless of one's circumstances, if one fully engages his activities, mind and words in the devotional service of the Lord, he should be understood to be a liberated person. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a responsible officer and a householder, yet his service to the cause of expanding the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unique. Srila Prahladananda Saraswati Thakur says, Durdentendriya kala sarpa patali prokata damstrayate. The sense organs are certainly our greatest enemies, and they are therefore compared to venomous serpents. However, if a venomous serpent is bereft of its poisonous fangs, it no longer is fearful. Similarly, if the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, there is no need to fear their activities. Devotees in Krishna consciousness movement move within this material world, But because their senses are fully engaged in the service of the Lord, they're always aloof from the material world. They're always living in the transcendental position. Vayam pramatasya vaneshvapi syad yataksa aste sahasad sapatnaha jitendriyasya riter buddhasya grihashrama kim nu karot yavadyam. Even if one goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-eyes, the mind and knowledge acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied, learned man who has conquered his senses. Om Vishnu Vraya Krishna Prastaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Vangauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Satarne. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken to help troubled people out of their trouble. Everyone in the material world is in trouble because of ignorance, avidya. Because we don't know who we are, therefore we've become subjected to our false ego. And because of our false ego, we're absorbed in attachment and aversion. And because of attachment and aversion, our intelligence has been lost, and we're becoming more and more absorbed in the Bali concept of life. And because we're absorbed in the Bali concept of life, we're always fearful about death. Abhiniveshita. So this is the price we pay for being in ignorance. So Bhagavad Gita is spoken to take Arjuna out of ignorance. And there is a process to get out of ignorance. It begins with hearing. First of all, we should find out that we're in ignorance, that we don't know who we are. Unless we're a little bit concerned with the fact that we don't know who we are, then there's no possibility of doing what's necessary to actually find out who we are. If we're satisfied being an illusion, then there's no question of getting out of it. Now Krishna told Arjuna that you should do your duty. Now you're on this battlefield, a fight is about to begin, and you're afraid something's going to go wrong. But actually, everything has already gone wrong. If you were in the first of all, being in the material world means that everything has gone wrong. Just like the idea of falling in the material world is not exactly accurate because we're already fallen. How can you fall from a position that's already fallen? But Arjuna is concerned that he didn't want to do something wrong. But Krishna said that the only thing right is to do what you're supposed to do. Everything else is wrong. If you do what you're supposed to do, even if it's wrong, it's not so wrong. And if you do something else, then it's completely wrong. So Arjuna is inquisitive, why is it I like to do the right thing, but I actually wind up doing the wrong thing? So Krishna tells Arjuna, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajaguna Samudvaha, Mahashano Mahapatma, Vidinam Ihavarina. It is lust only, Arjuna, born of contact with the material modes of passion, and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So it's Ari, it's an enemy of the soul, of self-realization. Now we may imagine, as Prahlad Maharaj said, we have so many friends and enemies, but actually, according to Prahlad Maharaj, there's no enemy in this material world except for the uncontrolled mind. Whatever may happen to this gross and subtle body is not as significant as what's happening inside for the soul. If the soul is actually rightly situated, then whatever happens in this material world is for his advantage. And if the soul is not rightly situated, whatever happens, good or bad, is all a disadvantage. In other words, if one accepts that everything here belongs to Krishna, then that's called knowledge. Everything else besides that is a different phase of ignorance. If we think there's some other philosophy or knowledge which supersedes the fact that everything belongs to Krishna, then this is called avidya, or ignorance. And if we're not inclined to utilize whatever energies Krishna has made disposable to us, that's also called the mode of passion. And even if we accept everything belongs to Krishna, and that we should utilize everything for Krishna's service, but if we want to take the credit for what we're doing, rather than actually doing it simply out of love for Krishna, that's called another phase of ignorance in the mode of goodness. Less ignorance, but still ignorant. Therefore, when Prabhupada was asked, what is the happiness of one in this material world in the mode of goodness, he said, if you think you're happy in the mode of goodness, that means you're in ignorance. There is no happiness. The material modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness are just different phases of ignorance. Therefore, only when one acts in Krishna consciousness to satisfy Krishna, under the guidance of Krishna's representatives, is one actually properly situated. Now, Krishna tells Arjuna how we can tell that we're not properly situated, at least that we should transform our understanding of reality and see a different way. So he tells Arjuna that the symptom of lust covering the soul is that he can't see things properly. In an animal species, he can't see things at all. In other species, he has some more intelligence. In the human form of life, he can begin to see things properly if he takes to the right process with the right attitude and hearing from the right source. Then the lust, which is, Krishna said, is never satisfied and which burns like fire, can be pointed out as what we have to conquer. Now, Krishna tells Arjuna, if you want to conquer your enemy, you have to know how it's working, what its strategy is, where it all begins. So, Indriyani paranyahur, Indriyevyak paranmanak, manasastu paro budir, yo bude paratastu saha. So there's a coordination between one's senses, one's mind, and one's intelligence, which can either entangle one or it can liberate one. So one has to see what will be entangling and what will be liberating, so one can do what's necessary to be liberated and avoid getting entangled. And Prabhupada analyzes in his purport what Krishna is talking about. We're in the bodily concept of life, and we're being impelled by the material senses and mind, which Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vangso Jiva Loke, Jita Bhutak Sanatana, Manakshastrani Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshiti. That the living entities in this material world, they're my separated parts, but they're all eternal, but due to material nature, they're struggling with the six senses, which include the mind. So how to get out of this struggle? So Prabhupada said we have to find out where the struggle begins. So what is the real struggle? The choice comes who we're going to hear from. Now we have one constant chatter in conditioned life in our minds. It didn't get there by accident. All this chattering in the mind didn't just arrive from nowhere. It arrived from our previous activities. And our previous activities, especially in the matter of hearing. Depending on who we're hearing from, there'll be different thoughts coming through the mind. Is that inside or outside? That there'll be different thoughts within the mind. And those thoughts will either be directed towards liberation or devotional service, trying to understand Krishna in truth, trying to understand basically the 5 categories of Bhagavad Gita: Ishvara, Prakriti, Jiva, Kala, and Karma, and understanding how these all fit together to engage us in devotional service. Or, if we hear about the glories of sense gratification, utilizing the senses for sense gratification, then the soul, if it decides to gratify the demands of the senses rather than engage them in Krishna's service, then he'll utilize his intelligence for that. And in order to utilize his intelligence to gratify the senses, he has to acquire a false ego, so that he can actually enjoy gratifying his senses. So lusty intelligence induces the living entity to acquire a false ego by which he identifies himself with his mind and his senses. And there may be some happiness in gratifying the senses, but it's considered to be tuchava. Actually, there is no real happiness. There is just the cessation of the unhappiness, which we call happiness. In any case, it's not all so bleak, because Krishna gives us a process to get out of it, which we call devotional service. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Therefore, in the very beginning, Arjuna, curb this great symbol of sin by regulating the senses, slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So our real problem is to identify that we're not here to become Romeo and Juliet. If we actually think, I'm going to become happy by becoming Romeo or Juliet, then our life is finished. Our devotional life is finished. One, as Prabhupada mentions, one can be in household life, but one should not think oneself to be the enjoyer in the household life. It's not that we can enjoy in the sense, the ultimate enjoyer, that I'm the center of existence, the universe exists to gratify me, and therefore, although the whole universe doesn't seem to cooperate, but my wife should cooperate, my children should cooperate, the dog should cooperate, everyone should cooperate to gratify me. That I'm the stomach here, and everyone should satisfy me. No, if one takes that position, then the wife will also take that position. The children will take the position. The dog will take the position. Everyone will take that position, that they're the center of the family life, and everyone should gratify them. And when they're not gratified, then there'll be anger and frustration. And then there'll be divorce. It is not by accident that I believe even in India people are getting divorced. Because everyone wants to be the center, but they're not meant to be the center. Therefore, they'll become frustrated. But if Krishna is the center, then it's possible that everyone will actually become satisfied. If Krishna is satisfied, then everyone else will become satisfied. So, it is not that household life is necessarily any more difficult for devotional advancement than ordinary other kinds of life, sannyas, or brahmachari, or vanaprastha, but it has to be properly executed. Just like sannyas has to be properly executed, brahmachari life has to be properly executed, vanaprastha life has to be executed properly. And it all begins with brahmachari life, hearing that I'm a spiritual soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and my life is meant to satisfy Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna, and if I accept that, then I won't become a victim of Maya or arrested by the illusory energy. As soon as I forget that whatever I have belongs to Krishna, then Krishna Bahir Mukha Bhagavancha Nikatasta Tare Japati Adare. Then Maya will immediately detect our desire to become something other than Krishna's servants, and she'll put us into illusion. Now we may think we have a nice illusion, that our illusion is young, it's healthy, it's strong, it's full of potential to enjoy and control in the material world. But just wait a few years, and that illusion will change into another kind of illusion. So if one wants to enjoy the material world, then Maya will give one this opportunity by putting us into illusion. But as soon as we're put into illusion, then our intelligence is lost, our spiritual intelligence is lost, and we'll fall into the conception that I am this body. And then we'll have to accept fear, anxiety, frustration, illusion, madness, and all the other manifestations of the material illusion. So, whatever our position is, we should find out what we're supposed to do. So Krishna has said that there's duties. And we perform those duties, and then we perform them in Krishna consciousness, then what's the result? Then Krishna, Indriyani Paranyahor, Indriya Paramanak, Manasastu Paro Budhira Yo Budhe Paratastu Saha. The working senses is superior to dull matter, mind is higher than the senses, intelligence is higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Evam Budhe Param Budva, Samstabhyatmana Atmana, Jahi Shatrum Vahabahu Kamarupam Durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher, and thus by spiritual strength, conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust. So when we use our intelligence to understand things properly, by hearing from the right source with the right attitude, then the result should be is that we accept that everything belongs to Krishna. And that we accept that everything I have is meant for Krishna's pleasure. And I should just do it to please him without any concern over what the results might be. I should know what Krishna wants. I should do it for his pleasure and leave the rest up to Krishna. With such intelligence, then we're connected with Krishna. Then we'll spontaneously remember Krishna. Then we'll be in Krishna consciousness. And then it won't matter what the results are because we're in a different platform of existence. Now, when our consciousness is absorbed in this platform of existence, we're only concerned about what happens on this platform of existence. But the same thing is going to happen. It always happens. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Dosha, Anudarshana. Whatever we decide, whatever we do on this platform of existence, the same thing is going to happen. Punak, punas, charvata, charvananam. Ultimately, everyone will grow old, they'll become diseased, they'll die, and they'll take another birth and get whatever reactions for the karma. Nothing's going to be happen here. Only when we're actually making progress towards remembering Krishna's, by the process of devotional service, remembering Krishna's name, form, quality, pastimes, becoming absorbed in Krishna consciousness, is anything of any significance actually happening? Prabhupada gives the example, the Himalayas, they're rumbling. Everyone is coming to find out what the Himalayas are going to give birth to. So much noise. Everyone's standing by and suddenly the Himalayas give birth and a little mouse runs out. So much is going on here, but ultimately it's nothing. Same thing, punas charvata charvanana. So many Brahmas have come, so many Brahmas have disappeared, and nothing has changed. We've come in so many births and so many deaths, and we're still being directed by our senses and our mind. We're still hoping in the future there'll be perfect peace and happiness in this temporary, miserable world. But even Brahma has enough intelligence to know that that's not going to happen, even for him. The conclusion is that we should, as brahmacharis, hear about the actual philosophy of life and try and put it into practice in the association of devotees and dedicate our energies with commitment, dedicate our energies to the service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, and then we'll make progress towards becoming Krishna conscious. If we can't learn that in brahmachari life, if it's too difficult, then instead of swadhyaya, then there's dhanam, dhammas, and tapa. Then we have to do some special work in terms of charity. We have to work and give charity, not work and live as if I'm the enjoyer and the controller. No, we work, but we give in the spirit of charity. We give to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. We give yajna. We do yajna in order to please Krishna, sacrifice for Krishna. And we do tapa by controlling the mind and senses. That family life is meant for the 6 loving exchanges in Krishna consciousness with the family members, dhamma, dhammas, and yajna. Namely, offering prasad to the deity and then taking the prasad with the devotees. Talking about Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam, and sacrificing our energies, yajna, in the Sankirtan movement, engaging the whole family in the Sankirtan movement by chanting together the holy names and going out and sometimes having others chant the holy names too. So the actual loving exchanges in family life have to be based on Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it's not loving exchanges. It's lusty exchanges, which will simply pull one deeper into the material energy. And when one is expert at those loving exchanges in family life, then one can go out into the forest and think about Krishna without disturbance. It's the loving exchanges in family life. If one cannot learn loving exchanges in brahmachari life, then one has to learn loving exchanges in family life. And one is unsuccessful, then in family life, one will not be successful in any other life. One will simply carry on. If one goes into the forest without being successful in loving exchanges in family life, one will go into the forest and simply lament. One could not become God and take another birth in some species of life. Maybe one of the animal species, like Bharat Maharaj, took birth as a deer. And if one practices tapa in the forest and becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness, then one has something to offer to others. One can understand the whole process of devotional service and go and preach. And whoever they meet, they can tell they can make progress in devotional service. Yari Deka Tari Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Agaya Guru Hana Tari Desh. But we don't know what brahmachari life is supposed to be. We don't know what grihastha life is. We don't know what vanaprastha life is. We don't know what sannyas life is. What are we going to tell people? We can tell them to chant Hare Krishna, but if we don't know ourselves what the real meaning of chanting Hare Krishna is, we can help people to some extent as much as we're able to help ourselves. But if we don't know how to elevate people, we don't know how to elevate ourselves to the different stages of Krishna consciousness, then how we know how to elevate anyone else to the different stages of Krishna consciousness? And we ourselves haven't gone to the process of elevation by learning the 6 loving exchanges, by doing tapa, or by doing dana, dhammas, and yagya, then how will we come to the platform of tolerance, tapa, and fix our minds completely without any fear, complete purity, and with full understanding, which is the beginning of real devotional life, which is known as sannyas, but as Krishna said, nashitya karma palam karya karma karoti ya sasanyasi yogi cha niragnir nachakriya. One who's unattached to the results of his work and works as he's obligated is actually in the renounced order of life, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. So real sannyas is that understanding that everything here belongs to Krishna, everything is controlled by Krishna, and therefore not having any fear of what's going to happen, because it's all happening to help us become Krishna conscious. And to have knowledge that I should be doing everything to please Krishna. To know with transcendental detachment and expertise how to satisfy Krishna, especially in the 6 loving exchanges. And then to be able to be pure, loving to Krishna, engage in those 6 loving exchanges with actual priti purvakam, with actual enthusiasm, or with care and attention, so that Krishna is pleased and everyone else is pleased, and when that pleasure is what advances us in pure devotional service. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Oh, by the way, and by that pleasure of experiencing Krishna's pleasure, Vishyana Vinivartante Nirharasiddehinam Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Drishva Nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, one becomes fixed in consciousness. So when we actually become convinced that I should hear about Krishna, I should serve Krishna, I should love Krishna, then the result is when we remember Krishna and feel Krishna's presence and his loving exchanges with his devotees, then the result is the happiness, the ecstasy in Krishna consciousness, the alleviation from the miseries of material consciousness is a higher taste, and that will strive us on and on to make further and further progress in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness. So, any comment? Yes. Is there any one of these microphones or something? Any microphone? No. Okay, so out loud. The what? Hand? Yes, yes.
This is actually at the purified stage we will be able to see, or at this stage how can we see that it's all because of Krishna? Because when the problem comes, we become more, it's because of this person or because of me. This kind of conflict comes in our
Yes.
very tough to see that.
Difficult. So the question is, how do we see at our stage that everything is being done by Krishna, controlled by Krishna. Well, for one thing, the only way we're going to be able to do it is by doing what Krishna wants us to do. If we don't do what Krishna wants us to do, we'll never see what Krishna, how everything's controlled by Krishna, because Maya won't let us. But if we do what Krishna wants us to do in different circumstances, then we'll be able to see. And in order to do that, we have to hear theoretically. We have to see things with the eyes of Shastra, Shastra Chakshush, so that we're prepared. Dukeshava managmanaksa keshu vigatas priha, or as Krishna says before that, Prajahati nida kaman sarvan parthamanogatan. What's the next word? Yatmanatmana. No. Prajanati yada kaman saram parthamanogatan tushta tasya pragya pratishtita. Yes, atmani prajati, tushta. Atmani, what's the second word? Atmani eva yad. Tushta. So the satisfaction that yada kaman saram parthamanogatan atmani vatmana tushta tasya pragya pratishtita. One who's not deviated by the mental whims that come into the mind, instead finds satisfaction in the self alone, he's said to be fixed in consciousness. So unless we're chanting Hare Krishna and happy in Krishna consciousness, then it's very difficult because we're looking outside, and when we don't see we're getting what we want, then we become frustrated. But if we're happy inside, then we'll be able to see properly. Then dukeshu vamanangmanak sakeshu vigatas priha vidaragabhaya krodas stitidir muni uchate. One who's not disturbed by this threefold miseries, one who's elated when there's happiness, and is freed from attachment, fear, and anger, is known as a sage of steady mind. So then the devotee learns, if there is there's seemingly smooth sailing going on in one's life, and we should understand that Krishna is arranging that so we can nicely engage in his service and do something for him. And when there's difficulty, we should know that Krishna is helping us by giving us some reaction for our past misdeeds, but he's minimizing it. So we can become purified by taking shelter of him. So whether he's in a pleasant or unpleasant situation, the devotee is always fixed in his determination to serve Krishna. That will free him from all material consciousness. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.